What are the top 5 places that people always ask, where can I carry a gun? Or can I carry a gun there? Well, stay tuned to find out. What's up out there, everyone in YouTube world, Facebook world, social media of the world? Welcome to the next episode of Musings with MGL. I'm your host, MGL. So we're going to get right into it. So these are the top 5 questions I get of places in Florida that you can or can't carry your gun. Now, remember, I'm a Florida attorney, so this is really only going to apply to Florida. If you live in a different state, check your state rules. But what are the top 5 places that I always get basically every week, either on social media, phone calls, direct messages of where can I carry a gun? Am I allowed to carry it here or not allowed to carry it here? Well, this is my list. So, disclaimer at the very top. Florida Statute 790.06, subsection 12A, is the statute that lists all the places that you can and can't conceal carry in Florida. This doesn't have to do with open carry. This is conceal carry in Florida. Go read that list. Look up the statute and read that list, because this is in no way a comprehensive list. This is not the only places that you can and can't carry. These are just the places where I get the most questions about, okay? So keep that in mind. Check out the statute. So, number 1, banks. People always assume that you can't carry a gun inside of a bank because it's a federal protected thing and therefore you can't carry a gun inside a bank. That is not true. It is not illegal for you to carry a gun in a bank. It's not against the federal rules or the federal laws, and it's definitely not a specific law in Florida that says you can't carry in a bank. So everybody always assumes that you're not allowed to carry a gun in a bank because, oh, it's a bank, but there is no law about that. Now, banks, like any other private companies, can put a sign on their window that says, we don't want you to carry guns in here. But as I've said repeatedly in other videos, in Florida, those signs have no legal weight. It's not automatically a crime for you to carry a gun inside that just because there's a sign. So much like any other private business, they can put up a sign, but there is no law that says you cannot conceal carry a firearm in a bank. So feel free to do so if you want to. Number 2, the post office. People always ask this question about the post office. Now, it is a crime. It is a federal crime for you to carry a firearm into post office or on post office property. That's just a crime. So you cannot have a firearm on post office property, either inside or outside in the parking lot if it's the post office property. Now, the question that always comes up is, well, what if it's not just the post office property? In other words, if it's a standalone post office with its own parking lot, the answer is you cannot have a firearm on that property. You can't even legally leave it in your car in the parking lot. You cannot possess a firearm on federal post office property. What happens if the post office is in a strip mall? So in other words, there's store, post office, store. The parking lot is not owned by the post office. It's owned by the strip mall. So you can have your firearm in your car or concealed carried on you in the parking lot or into the other stores, but you obviously cannot carry it into the post office because now you are on the post office property and inside the post office. The sidewalk outside of it is probably a huge gray area that you might want to be careful, and if you should walk this way around that store and go from there. So the general rule is if it's post office property, you cannot carry on it or in it. If it's not post office property, like a parking lot of a strip mall, you can carry it on that area, but just you cannot go on the post office property. So that's number 2. Number 3, sporting events. Okay. In Florida, they added to the law under the Marjory Stoneman Douglas Act, a bunch of new places that you can't carry a firearm. And one of them is a professional sporting event. Okay. So this being in Florida means you cannot carry to a Buccaneers game or a Miami Dolphins game or a Tampa Bay Lightning game or Jacksonville Jaguar game, any professional sporting event like that, it is illegal for you to carry a firearm there. And this is any professional sporting event. So not just the ones that we all know about because we live in Florida and they're on TV. If it's a bull riding event by the Bull Riding Association, you can't go there. If it's a professional soccer game or a rugby game or a tennis match, anything like that, you cannot carry firearms at any of those professional events. If you want to go to a wrestling match, you're not going to be able to carry there if it's professional. Now, the question is, what is professional and what is amateur? If you're going to your local kids' under eight soccer game, as long as it's not on a school property, if it's like in a public park and that's where they play their games, or in a church parking lot or something like that, that's not a professional event because they're amateurs, they're kids, you can carry there. If it's any other sort of event where somebody gets paid and is put on, or it's sponsored or whatever, that's going to be considered a professional event. The question always comes up with rodeos, when people always try and thin the line. Oh, well, but it's an amateur rodeo. Like, they're not necessarily getting paid. Look, that's a gray area. And if you want to take the risk on those type of things, you want to take a risk on those type of things. But my advice to you is you should not carry at any sort of event that's going to be considered professional. If there's a chance anybody's getting paid, if it's put on by a professional organization, then it's going to be considered a professional sporting event and you're not going to be able to carry there. So just keep that in mind. Number 4, before we get to number 4, remember, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below. It really helps the algorithm. I keep getting more subscribers. I'm over 1,000 now, but with a YouTube channel that's focused on guns, the algorithm always bites me in the ass. So please like, share, comment, follow the channel if you like my content. So number 4, the county fair. Now, this always comes up on a local thing, obviously, because it's a county fair. The question is always about state fair as well. So I guess I should say it's also for the state. But there is no specific thing in the statute that says state fairs or county fairs. If the fair is run, so it's never blanketly illegal for you to carry at a fair, because again, it's not listed in there. If it's a fair that's run by the government, in other words, if it takes place in your county property and the county owns the property that the fair takes place on, they cannot prevent you from carrying a firearm, because we have a prevention statute in Florida that says only the state can pass firearm laws. And like I just said, there is no state law that says you can't carry at fairs. So if a county run fair that takes place on county property tells you can't carry your firearm on there, that's illegal. They're violating the preemption statute and they can be sued. So you are allowed to carry at the county fair if it takes place on county property. The issue comes in where if it takes place on private property. So there's a lot of county fairs that, even though they're county fairs, they're held physically on property owned by private entities. If it's a private entity, they have a right to have rules just like any other private entity that says you can't carry a firearm on here. So if you go to your county fair and they have a metal detector and no firearm law and it's on private property, they can tell you can't come in here with a gun and you got to walk through the metal detector. And if you refuse, they can tell you to leave, that you can't come on there. If it's on county property, they can do it. So what you need to do is you need to find out before you go to the fair, is it taking place on government property or private property? If it's on private property, you can't carry there. If it's on government property, you can. So keep that in mind about county fairs. And last but not least, the biggest one that they always get is schools. Okay. Can I carry at my school? What if I drop my kids off? What if I go have lunch with my kid? What if I go to watch my kid or anybody else's kid in a football game that takes place on school? Can I carry there? The blanket rule is no. There's a federal law that says you can't have firearms on school property. There is a state of Florida law that says you cannot conceal carry firearms on school property. Remember, this isn't about open carry. You can't open carry anywhere with a few exceptions, but you cannot conceal firearm on school property. So if you are going to school to have lunch with your kid in the cafeteria, you cannot conceal carry and carry your firearm. If you're going to school and going to watch a high school football game, you cannot carry a firearm to go watch that high school football game. It is illegal for you to do so. You will be charged with a felony. The only thing you're allowed to do is leave the firearm in your car. So if you're dropping your kid off in the drive-through line at school, you can have your firearm in your glove compartment or concealed or in your center console or under your seat or whatever. As long as it's securely encased and stuff in your car, you can have it in your car as you're dropping your kid off to school. If you go watch the high school football game, you can leave the gun in your car and go watch the high school football game. There's an exception in the car about it in the statute that allows you to leave it in your car. But you can never conceal carry it on your person. You must leave it in the vehicle, in the parking lot. I would advise you, obviously, to lock it in your glove compartment, lock your car, have it securely encased. It's secured from the public, et cetera, et cetera. But you can carry but it's got to stay in your vehicle in the parking lot. You cannot take it with you on your person. You cannot conceal it on your person and carry it on your person. You can only leave it in your vehicle. One thing to keep in mind, though, is the legislature in the statute gave school districts the right to exempt themselves from that law that allows you to carry firearms on school property. So as I said, the state law says that you can carry your firearm on the school property as long as it's in a glove compartment or your center console, basically securely encased. However, each individual school district has a right to opt themselves out of that allowance and say, no, you can't have firearms on the school property at all. So before you go to any school property, you need to go to the website for that school district and see if they have posted on there that they have chosen to exempt themselves from the statute and disallow all firearms on the property. If they have done that, then you cannot carry on the property, regardless of what the state law says. So make sure you go to the school district's website to see if they follow the state law or if they have exempted themselves from that law and made them an absolute gun-free zone. If they have, you can't carry there. If they haven't, then you can carry under the state law. So very important to make sure you do that before you just go on any school campus. So that's it. That's the top 5 questions that I always get. If you have any questions or follow-ups, please comment down below. I'll be happy to reply to you and see if I can clarify it for you. But as always, thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay vigilant, and carry on.